For some time, the EIS has been concerned about rising levels of poverty in this country. Latest data would indicate that 1 in 4 children and young people are living in homes where income levels are far below what is required to live a decent life.
During the pandemic, a lot of our families lost their job and they found that they had increased childcare responsibilities, and older members of their family required additional care. We find ourselves at the beginning of the cost of living crisis, I think, and at least 2 caps to fuel costs in a year is adding so much pressure to families that some are going to have to choose between the food that they provide their children and heating their homes. Some of my pupils, they speak to me about their concerns. They're worried that their mum might be about to lose her job, and so they know that that's going to cause additional stress in their family. And their mental health is definitely deteriorating because of those concerns that we would hope that primary children wouldn't feel, but they do, they hear and they see it all.
Our pastoral support colleagues have been absolutely overwhelmed with young people who are clearly experiencing stress and difficulty. And I think that one of the reasons for that is because of the additional stress at home in families that has been exacerbated by the cost of living crisis on the back of the lockdown.
We know that poverty has an absolutely dreadful impact on the mental health of anyone who's experiencing it, and that's no different for children and young people. And associated with that in our classrooms, of course, is the stigma that many young people feel as a result of the poverty that they and their families experience at home.
I work in a school that has a really high percentage, high 80s of SIMD 1 and 2. We also have a high percentage of free school meals, so it's a very poverty driven school. We've noticed since we came back in August that our breakfast club was necessary, and we intended starting it a couple of weeks into the term, but it actually started the following week because our children were coming in hungry in the morning. We've also noticed a high level of children coming in late because mums and dads no longer have a car or transport to pick them up, and the bus can be quite expensive for them to get to school.
We also in the schools have a uniform bank where we have young people who maybe not turn up with the appropriate uniform and they can just be handed something straight off the peg. And I think increasingly that is an allowance that a lot of schools are having to do informally. But really we need to have much more formal and national action to make sure that all of the young people that come to school don't go hungry and have the proper equipment and the proper clothes to come to school in.
We have children that come to school with paper thin jackets, and a lot of the parents will come and say, you know, we've got this, can we hand it in, is it okay to hand it in? They also come and ask if we've got any jackets or things that have been handed in that they can take away with them. There's an embarrassment factor there though when parents have to admit that they need help from the school, and coming to ask for that help is difficult, but the teachers have got really good relationships with most of the parents in the school.
We don't ask children to bring in resources to the school. We provide everything that they need in school. So there's no stigma about PE kit. We offer them trainers if they need trainers. We have the nurture group in our school where we have a teacher and 2 pupil support officers who work with families that are struggling to afford their messages. We have a food bank in the school, and at present we have about 30 families accessing messages every week. We have a school farm, which is one of our PEF projects that has continued. We hope that that will help the children develop their knowledge of fresh produce, develop their entrepreneurial skills. We're hoping to sell some things to raise funds to help take children out on trips. We never ask them for money for those things.
Since coming back this year, we've noticed what was difficult for many people already has become worse. We have the heavily subsidised Blair Vaddock Outdoor Education Centre that we didn't get a place for this year. So next year we're going to another place in Lockerbie, which is not accessible to many of our primary 7 parents. So we are the head teacher deliberately got it for February as opposed to closer in the summertime to allow us to make fundraising, have some fundraising activities to allow the access to that, which every single child I've been with on an outdoor education trip in Primary 7 has said it's one of the best weeks of their lives. It can't be downplayed, it can be the one and only time these children have been out with the boundaries of the city. So that's only going to be achievable with a massive amount of help from other families within the community and the school itself. Charities is a failure of a society, and fundraising within a school for what I would consider our basics is morally abhorrent. And we are in an area of high multiple deprivation, but it's coming for others. Majority of people on benefits now are in employment. That's just going to get worse and worse as we go through this unless something drastically changes.
More and more we're having teachers having to dip into their own pockets to provide materials, and I know that this happens and teachers are very well intentioned in doing so, or are giving them food directly for those kids on the margin who don't qualify for free school meals. And it's an absolute disgrace that teachers have to do this, and we need to make sure that the EIS campaigns for a formal provision, that the government actually provides a minimum standards of funding to ensure that young people have access to food, to materials for school and to clothes.
That schools and teachers can't single-handedly eradicate the impact of poverty. That is just simply not possible. But it's important that teachers understand the forces that there are beyond schools that do contribute to the circumstances of children and their families, and how those circumstances then can often conspire to make it very difficult for young people to participate fully and to enjoy actually all that school has to offer them. So I think it's really important for teachers to talk about these things, to be aware of these things, to engage in the professional learning, for example, that the EIS offers in relation to those things, specifically the PACT project.
Teachers, I think, can challenge what they are witnessing every day in learning more about poverty. Taking part in the EIS PACT training was eye-opening for me, and it gave a fantastic space for my colleagues, not just in this school but in the area and nationally, to talk openly about what they were witnessing with the issues to do with poverty and how it was affecting their students and how it's actually affecting the work that they do and how they work to try and support the children and their families.
It's also important that they fight for fair pay for the rest of the public sector as well. Otherwise, we will continue and perpetuate the cycle of child poverty that for such a long time this union has been trying to challenge in so many different fora. These two fights are absolutely linked. In fact, it's one fight. They're just two different fronts of exactly the same fight.
Join the local association. Come and speak about what you're experiencing in your school, hear what other schools are doing, trying to make links in your area. Also join the National Council, come and talk to all of us about what you're seeing and the issues that you're dealing with every day. So you're taking your story out of the school into society and letting them know what's going on